It is an honor to introduce one of the most prolific board games designers, creators, with more than 700 games published, Dr. Reiner Knizia. Dr. Knizia, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's an honor to be there. Thank you.
No, it's a real pleasure for us. I'm here in Chile, in South America. The board game community is currently growing, and we always see what's happening out there, and it's, like I said, a real pleasure to be talking with someone like you. I have to ask this. Do you have one copy of all your board games?
Yes, actually, here in the studio we have a separate room, a large room with lots of different shelves, and we are actually keeping one copy of every edition of every game.
Wow.
So that means some games will only have one copy and other games will have 20, 30, 40 copies, depending on how many different language editions and how many different artworks there are. Modern art, for example, has lots of local artwork, and that's just a pleasure to see the whole shelf of the different games.
Yeah, I think I liked most the preview cover than the modern, with the one with the head blowing.
Yes.
So it's a large room.
Yes.
When do you decide to become a full-time board game designer?
That was about 25 years ago. I've always loved to play games, and with very little pocket money and growing up into a small town in southern Germany, I soon found myself designing my own little games just to play with friends. I never thought that I would become a professional game designer, but as it goes over the years and over the experiences, I have had a rich variety of different games. And actually a book publisher became interested and said, can we not put that into a book?
Oh.
And the book has just been recently republished in America in the English language. And then it started and it became successful. And eventually I had to decide, because I was the manager of a very big company in the United Kingdom, 300 people. And on the other hand, I had all these ideas for the design, so I had to decide which way to go. And I decided for the games, and I have never regretted it.
That's the important. But it's something that you pursued in one time, or it's something that mostly happened day to day?
You mean the decision to become full-time?
Yes.
Yes. I'm a person who loves to do one thing with the full energy and the full heart. I'm not the person who does 5 things at the same time and drives them all. This is not my personality. And so when the games became more successful, I had to take a decision. But the decision wasn't taken lightly, because I knew once you get out of management, it's very difficult to come back. You cannot really take a sabbatical. So over 2 years, I went through this process. I thought about it very carefully, and in the end, I followed my heart. And my heart says, I think I have lots of games ideas, and the risk is not too big, because I had already published quite a number of games, won a few awards, so I was established in the industry. It wasn't a jump into the very cold water. And eventually, I gave it a go.
Awesome. And one might think that the designer path is a lonely path, but it's not the case, because there is a full group of people working with you right now. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, games are played between players. And it doesn't matter how much experience you have. Essentially, you cannot sit down, and I'm a mathematician, and you cannot sit down and calculate the fun and calculate the game. Of course, there's a lot of thinking and analytical work as well in the beginning to build a model, but in the end, game design is playtesting. It's an iterative process. Today they call it design thinking, but it is, you play, you see what works, what doesn't work, then you change it, you play again. And of course, you have to be careful to have a robust design. That means you cannot always play with the same group. Otherwise, you develop conventions and everybody knows how to play, and then some other group plays it and it doesn't work. So for this, because I'm essentially packaging my entertainment into boxes, and people want to open the box and they expect the entertainment to come out.
Yeah.
And that means it needs to be robust in a sense that lots of different people, lots of different approaches can cope with the game, or the game can cope with them. And therefore, I test with a wide variety of different people. And of course, all of these people add their suggestions and add their ideas to various problems and various challenges in the game. So a lot of people contribute to it. You can see that at the credits at the end of the rules. And it is not a lonely business at all. It is a very intense business with respect to designing. Of course, once you become a professional designer, and there are very few in the world, then you also have to structure the business processes. Absolutely. So all the contracts, the approval processes, the fairs, offering the games to the publishers. And if you don't organize that properly, you can get eaten up with all the business side of it. But essentially, your business will not prosper if you do not have really good designs. So again, it's finding the time, making sure you have the time, and run both, the creative part and the business part.
Yeah, and it's a long road too. It's not something that happens one day to another.
No, that's absolutely clear. And I would say, if you want to earn business and become rich, don't become a game designer, don't become a book author. These are professions from your heart. But if you start from your heart, and if you really do what you love doing, then if you're talented as well, the success will follow and you will not starve. Yes. But yes, it is a long process where you cannot expect to kind of run to full success within a short time. But it's okay, because as long as you enjoy the path and the way, it's fine.
Yeah, we tend to think like the rock star lifestyle. I published one game and now I'm rich and now I'm famous, and that's not always the case.
No, that is not happening. No.
Mr. Knizia, I think one of the seals of your work is that you make games like the simple game like Llama. Llama, it's a fantastic game. We love them here. But on the other hand, you have games like Celtis, the winner of the Spiel des Jahres 2008. Where do you find the inspiration or the interest to create games so different one from another?
There are 2 points here. One point is that I do not want to work in one little area. Like, the specialists dig deeper and they know more and more about less and less of the widths. I want to play and create lots of different games so that I can actually serve the market very well. But it's also that I want to kind of have a cross-fertilization. When I started to do children's games, they are very different to adult games, but you learn how kids are immediately jumping onto experiences, happy events in the game. And when I started to do smartphone games on the small screens, you need to create games which have no rules in a way. And this again gives lots of insights which are very valuable for the other categories of the games. So I think having a wide circle of games, particularly because I have a wide interest in different games, helps being creative rather than trying to do always the same things. But the second point is, I'm not trying to make it hard for me when I do a design and say, this has to be a card game like Llama. For me, the ideas, the designs are like children. You can only help them develop their potential. And you mentioned Celtis. Celtis started out as a little card game, as Lost Cities. And then I decided to make a board game out of it. And so the design changes and I let it develop. And sometimes I start with a children's game idea and it becomes a family game because I have more ideas to put in, or the other way around. Sometimes I start with a big game and say, it doesn't really carry the big game, but there's a good idea in there. And then I minimize the game. So again, giving myself the freedom to let the games grow where they suit best.
No. So it's a real part of the process, and the experience also. The ability to see the little things and say, okay, let's take this and make another game. Maybe it will be more fun. Oh.
Yes, and of course now it's not only the physical games, it's also the digital games, which are a much bigger market. I'm not into the big digital projects, but of course a lot of our games have been transferred into apps, and I've also designed some games specifically with the apps in mind. It is just fun because all of this is games, and why ignore parts of them where you can learn and also create more entertainment for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something that it's really important here in Chile, in Mexico. There are different parts of the world where we are using board games in schools with a teaching proposition. Do you have any experience using one of your board games in school or educational context?
I mean, apart from having my playtesters, who are very experienced players, I, of course, in a second stage of the development also have to play, I believe, with the target audience. So I have some schools where I frequently go to, not in the Corona times now, but usually I go there and we test. So that's experience from young kids or older kids, just to see how they react with it. But I don't think that was really your question about schools. It's more the experience of what can a school profit from using games.
Exactly.
And I mean, this is a big topic. I think that's your main topic. I think games are a very essential part of our lives and of our culture. When you look at babies, they essentially they play with all the things and they learn. And it's not a structured play. And later they learn how to do a rule-based games. But the whole world is essentially, if you want to have the fun, it's all about having exciting experiences, and the games essentially channel this into a more focused box or a more focused presentation. But essentially, people talk about gamification now. So they talk about taking the experience which we have in games, which draws us in and we can't stop playing because it's so fascinating, to transfer that to other areas. And one of the areas is business, but the other area is education.
Yes.
So can we not create an environment, competitive, cooperative, where you have certain elements of the games which help you learn? And I think the best educational games are such which catch you emotionally because you want to play in the theme, in whatever you do. And you don't even notice that you're also training mathematical abilities, language abilities, or management abilities, organizational abilities. So in a general answer, I think there are lots of opportunities and lots of benefits that can be gotten out of games at school. But it may be not straightforward, because a game is initially not designed for schoolwork, but it's designed for a small group of people.
Yes. In that line, have you ever created one game saying, I will take this game and work the memory ability, or I will take this game and teach some emotional abilities, or it's that something most secondary to the fun factor?
No. I mean, the emotion of the play is a very important factor of the design. And when I start designing games, I would sit by myself first of all, think about the game, but I would close my eyes and I would look into the play situation, and I would sit in my mind at the table with other players, and I would imagine how my turn looks like. And the main thing I want to experience is then, so what are my options? And what are my emotions? What emotions do I want to actually feel? And what do I have to do in the game that to have these emotions? Is it competitive? Is it cooperative? Is it just getting points? Is it building something? Is it the excitement? It might collapse. So if you have a haptic game, and I think emotions, the thematic environment and bringing the people together onto the stage of the game is very important, but it is most important in my eyes in educational games, because when you have a game and say you have to learn, you have to practice, it's not going to work. Yes.
Yeah.
So the secret of a successful educational game is, for the parents who buy the game, it needs to look very educational. Yeah. And for the kids who play it, it needs to be emotion, adventure, fantasy, fantastic. And they don't even see that there is a learning effect there as well. The learning effect is hidden. It comes naturally. It's not forced. It comes naturally through what you want to do in the game. And I think that's the big secret of doing educational games.
Exactly. And something we say frequently to teachers that are interested in use the board games in school is you have to play the game first. You can't teach this with this game if you know play it first.
I think if you're a teacher and you don't like games and you have never played games, then leave it and you wouldn't do it anyway. But because it is, again, artificial, it is forced. But if you're a teacher who likes playing games anyway, then you naturally will know some games. And of course, naturally will know other people, and you can hear around and say, what is a good game? What do I actually want to communicate? And so, of course, you have to choose the game and have to understand the game yourself before you take it into class. Of course, it doesn't mean that you have to explain the rules. You can then give it as a little task to those people who like to do it and say, okay, we take a little group, and within the small groups who are playing, maybe we have always one candidate who explains the rules. So you don't notice, but already you are starting to train teaching and to try and organize yourself and present information. But of course, you're not doing this as a deliberate factor. You're doing this for the means of, I explain the game to you. It's the most natural thing to do. But that's already where the learning starts.
Yes, absolutely. Something that we can think as a kind of barrier here, it's that the game and the play, it's mostly not good seeing in schools. We tend to think school is for learning and games are not learning. Games are fun. So you don't need to play in schools. Is there a cultural factor there? We tend to talk that, no, in Europe they always play. They have to know that the games work with the educational process. What do you think about that? Is there a cultural, or it's more something we have to know with experience?
It can be a cultural obstacle. It can be a hurdle in society if you, so to speak, have the opinion that kids have to suffer at school, they really have to sweat, and you cannot have fun. It's serious. I want to say that this is completely wrong, because that's not how a child learns. That's how a child learns to not like school. And if you offer the kids exciting, all the kids are inquisitive. They want to learn a lot of things. They want to know a lot of things. And they might not always want to learn all the historic things and all the geography things, but it's a give and take. And it's a lot of personality of the teacher, but also a lot about how do I actually bring the process of learning, the knowledge content over. And again, just abstract learning is one part. Doing it, experiencing it, living it, how you can do it in a game. If you have a country and you want to teach the geography, take a geography game, have some quiz questions around it, but people play on the board and suddenly they know where the different cities are, they know where the rivers are. It depends on the age group, yes, but it comes very natural. There are so many ways where you can subconsciously introduce learning materials. It doesn't have to be done in a hidden way, but it's just natural. You play on the board and it's chilly or wherever it is, and suddenly you see it, and I want to go from there to there, and there's no airport here and I want to go there. It's you can create, and you can also take games which are based in a different country, in different objectives, and you can just adjust them and adapt them to your situation. Yes, I mean, if you have a quiz game, you can put other questions in. If you have a geography game, you take the geography of your country in there. Yes, if you have a city building game, well, then at least name it after a city which you have in your country, and people get a completely different relationship to it. Yes,
couldn't agree more. It's awesome to hear it from you also. I have one last question related to other thing, that there is a prolific and growing group of creators, designers, artists, maybe currently working on their first game. Do you have any advice for them? Can you share some experience?
Yes. Do not start with the intention of becoming rich. That's already what I said. So follow your heart. And if you're enthusiastic about games, play a lot of games. Understand what a good game is, and then get a group of playtesters and listen very carefully to them. Because sometimes you fall in love with your own game, but neutrally seen from other people say, but it's not as good as this. And you need to know good games first to understand what you're competing against and what the measure is and the threshold is to have a good game. And then do not try to become world famous with your first game. Do not try to go to a big publisher. The best thing you can do is to go to a small publisher.
Great.
And the small publisher will be much more open on the same level as you are. You can learn from the small publisher. You can discuss things with him. And the small publisher hasn't got the opportunity to have a flop. So they put their heart in it as well, and you will learn much more about the industry. And it's game design is not just about sitting there having a good idea and testing a little bit. It's understanding what is the program and the lines of the different publisher, where does the game sit best. It is also understanding the production side. So why do people produce 55 cards? It loosens up these days, but in former times there was certain production sizes. You need to understand. I mean, for example, in South America, it is often difficult with import taxes. So you need to understand that then you need to produce in your own country. What are the things you can do there, what is more costly or not qualitative so easy to do. So there's a lot of things to understand before you can really have a very good game which fits for the publisher. And by learning with the publisher, you cannot invent it yourself. So you need to work with publishers, understand publishers, talk to lots of people. If you have a game fairs, you can go there, look around, learn. It's all about learn, a lifelong learning, so to speak. Here we are back at school. We never leave school, but if school was more torture for us, then leaving school, a lot of people are happy to go. And the worst thing that can happen is that people leave school and say, I never want to learn again, which is not true. But it is, if you have good teachers and if teachers present things in an interesting way. And I'm not saying you have to play all the time during school, that you cannot do that. But it is just these pleasures you can have. And you never know. Kids may actually want to stay a bit longer at school just to play the game. And that's a new one. People want to stay longer. And then you have won. Yes. And then it is, as you say, it is about finding the right games. There are games which you can play with many people, where the teacher in the front draws something from the head and everybody applies it to their game situations. There are other things where you can have group situations where everything comes into one decision, one big table, but people go away in groups, come up with their solution. You can have a project management things. You have Lego pieces on the table and you have to estimate how much time do I need to build that tower and how high can I build that tower, and every group puts in their estimate, and then the best estimate has it try first. But if they have been too optimistic, so it's project planning, it's organizing. You can do a lot of things with almost free-form games, you don't necessarily have to stick to the individual rule play, but that's also, of course, a starting point where you just simply take a good game that people can learn a lot, and you play it at school, and then you make sure that kids can take it home and play it at home, and it becomes an avalanche. Yes.
Excellent advice, Doctor. Dr. Knizia, thank you very much for taking the time to have this interview. Hope to see more and more games with the Knizia name on them. I'm hoping to play my city. It's supposed to arrive here in Spanish soon. I'm hoping to play it. I have the group of friends to play with, so I hope to enjoy it soon.
I wish you a lot of fun with this very new type of game, the legacy game, where you change things. Again, it's very educational to see. I cannot go back. Once I have cut down the tree is no longer there. In the next game, it is no longer there. Once I have destroyed part of the ecology, I have a problem later. But if I'm doing it in a sensible manner, the other one might be faster, industrialize it, but he will suffer afterwards through pollution and so on. And where do I put the best pass? So there's a lot. I mean, it's.
I have to play it.
The best thing to say is games are a mirror of our world and of our culture. So everything which is out there in life will also be able to be found in a game. And that's so fascinating that it's a small world of everything in the games. Whatever you're looking for, even if you look for the pandemic, you have a game about the pandemic. Yes, so it's all there and it's all to be enjoyed. And the fascinating thing is it brings people together and everybody is equal. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what you believe in this game, there are rules and we can experience new things, but we're all equal. We have all the same rights, we have all the same rules, and we can try things out. And if it goes wrong, it was just a game. If I win, oh yes.
Dr. Knizia, thank you very much again for joining us. I hope to see you soon, and thanks again.
I thank you, and I wish you lots of luck and lots of success with your broadcasts, and I hope you reach many people and you reach many schools, and school will become even more exciting for the kids.
That's the idea. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.